But
So
are taxes voluntary contributions?
well, they're just an entirely different kettle of fish than a fraudulent act by a private business or a violent act by a criminal. So the equation you're trying to draw is bogus.
Okay, but they are not voluntary contributions, right? They are,
Well,
if you don't pay the taxes, the government will force you to pay them.
That is
Right.
correct.
Okay, so is there a difference between forcing someone to pay for a service that's provided to them personally on the one hand, and forcing someone to pay for a service that's provided to someone else? Because my question was regarding redistributive taxes, taxing some groups in order to give benefits to others. Is there a fundamental difference between those two kinds of forcing somebody to pay for something?
What you're trying to do, and it is really a fraudulent connection itself, John,
Okay.
is trying to connect either illegal activity or violent activity with a form of self-government where people in a democracy elect representatives who, in part, raise money from the public to carry out the public duties. It is not an act of against someone's will, because people are voting for people in office, establishing a government, giving that government power to self-govern and to do things that the public needs. So in that sense, it's very much a voluntary act. Now, if you don't obey the law, you can run the risk of government sanction for failing that law, whether it's running a red light or failing to pay your income tax. But the society supports that penalty because everybody should make their contribution under a self-government, which is the democracy that we have in this country.
Okay, my question was, do you see a fundamental difference between forcing someone to pay for a service that's provided to them personally on the one hand, and forcing them to pay for a service that's provided to someone else? You see a fundamental difference between those, or you don't?
I just disregard the basic proposition of your question.
You don't want to answer that question?
No,
okay.
It's a bad connection because people aren't forced to pay taxes. Now, the people that don't like to pay them might make that argument, but we are self-governed. This is something that we do in a free society, and it's not a question of forcing. It's a question of electing people to come together to make decisions that affect the common good.
Okay. Does the fact that someone is allowed to vote on an action mean that they have consented to the action?
In a democracy, it does. They may not like what happens, but so you accept the result, the fact that majority rules. We have to be careful that the rights of minorities are protected, and by minorities, that can be the losing side of a vote, not necessarily an ethnic minority. But we accept the notion that majority rules.
Okay, so in your view, 51% of the population can extract as much money as they want from the other 49, and the other 49 cannot complain that they're being forced to pay because the 51% will say, you had a chance to vote and you lost, so you consented.
But the consent isn't permanent. That's why we have elections. So if people are unhappy with the result, they can try to vote that person out of office or that party out.
Why should the 51 want to change their mind? If they can extract as much money as they want from the other 49, they can vote them down year after year after year forever. And the other 49 have to keep paying and complaining, and there's nothing they can do about it.
But in reality, the 49 and the 51, the makeup of those majorities will change. People in the 49 can campaign against the 51 and maybe change some votes. And that's what it means to have elections and to be self-governed. So it's not a permanent ruling class. It's not a permanent group of people that are powerless.
Wouldn't it be better if you had a system where they couldn't form these coalitions and forcefully extract money from the minority, and they had to respect each other's property as private citizens do?
Well, there's plenty of laws that protect private property rights. You seem very hung up on the notion that taxes are forcibly extracting money from people.
You agree they're not, but you agree that they're not voluntary. But you agree that they're not voluntary contributions, right?
No.
You think they are voluntary contributions?
What I'm saying is that under a democracy where people elect a government and they consent to the rule of law, that you may not like all the laws, and you have an opportunity to change those laws, but you agree to live under the rules of society.
So you think they are voluntary contributions?
Yes.
taxes. So if you don't pay them, will the government force you to pay them or not?
Yes, of course.
So then they're not voluntary contributions.
If you break the law, whatever that law is, you will be punished.
It's the difference between a civic organization. They can tell you to give them some money, and if you decide not to, they can't force you. But if the government tells you to give them some money, and you decide not to, they will force you. So that's that's what government is, as opposed to a civic organization or a church or a university. They can't do that.
That is correct.
So why do you object to the fact that I use the word forceful, if it is forceful?
Well, I think it's just a bogus connection that you're trying to make here. But you can use whatever terms you like.